Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Hannah. So I feel like I'm making these kind of videos a lot, but I actually had the previous one filmed a long time ago and it just took a long time to get to me editing it. So sorry if these seem a little back to back, but nonetheless, here are the last 4 movies I have watched recently. So first we have The Deep House, which was directed and written by 2 French filmmakers, Alexandre Bustillo and Julien Maury. This is a horror that just came out this year, and unfortunately I gave it 2 stars. While diving in a remote French lake, a couple of YouTubers who specialize in underwater exploration videos discover a house submerged in the deep waters. What was initially a unique finding soon turns into a nightmare when they discover that the house was the scene of atrocious crimes. Trapped, with their oxygen reserves falling dangerously, they realize the worst is yet to come. They are not alone in the house. So I've seen absolutely no marketing for this movie. The only reason I knew about it is because we had gone to the theater to see another movie and saw the poster of this. And I actually didn't realize it was a French-made movie because when we went home and watched the trailer, it was English, like the movie is in English. So I didn't realize until I was looking up who the director was for my notes that I realized it's actually a French-made film. But the movie is mostly in English. It takes place in France, so of course there's French here and there, and also one of the main characters is French. It is a boyfriend and girlfriend, and the boyfriend is English and the girlfriend is, I think it says her mother is French, but I'm not sure if her dad is like American or something. It never really tells us, but it doesn't exactly matter either. So I also find the description of this to be a bit deceptive. The description acts like they just kind of stumble upon this house under the water, but that's not the case at all. They live in New York and they actually specifically come to France to find this house. It is something that is known in a few small circles, and since their thing is diving and doing like cool things for their YouTube, they choose to go there to do this for that. Also, sorry if you hear construction noises in the background. There's construction happening on all sides of our apartment, so it's a bit impossible to get away from. So I thought this movie had amazing potential. I love haunted house movies. I love ghosts and supernatural and anything to do with that. And I know I'm not alone in thinking that deep water is terrifying. So just like the threat of drowning and it being a haunted house and being trapped and all of that is just, I knew it was going to be a tense movie for me. However, this did end up being wasted potential. The first half of the movie is mostly fine. You can tell the actors aren't exactly the greatest. This does definitely feel like an indie film. Luckily, they don't take too much time before getting into the water. And once they are in the lake, I definitely feel the tension. The woman is kind of worried about being able to hold her breath and worried about the oxygen supply throughout the whole movie. So that also kind of adds onto it, as that is a fear that the audience would have. So seeing them in this like dark, murky water where they're having to use like this, wow, I just completely lost the word for it. Tomo, what is the word for the thing that flies in the sky that you can take video?
Drone?
Yes. They basically have to use like this drone with this light on it to kind of try and scout ahead of them to see what's going on. And there was a jump scare that got me right when they find the house, and I knew it was coming. I think it's even in the trailer, but still it got me a bit, and I was just ready for this to get going. I was ready for the scares. I was ready for the spookiness. What ends up happening though, and just kind of completely ruins the film, is that it gets to the point where it's just too dark and too shaky, and you really can't tell what's happening anymore. Like, we get these really like creepy scenes in the first half, and you get this buildup of everything happening, and then it just devolves into that stupid shaky cam that I cannot stand. And all you see is just like whooshing movement everywhere, and the actors pretty much devolve into just shouting each other's names at each other, and that's it. So that second half really just gets to be too much, and it acts like there's this mystery for them to solve, but we really don't get many answers for why this is happening, why these ghosts need them there, or anything like that. However, I actually liked the ending, more specifically the last 30 seconds. It did end in an unexpected way, and I happened to enjoy that, and I thought it was just perfect with what happened in the beginning of the film. So if movies that take place in deep water and have kind of that, oh my god, am I gonna drown vibe, you might like this, but just be aware the second half definitely is not as good as the first half, which is why it brought my rating down to a 2. I think the whole haunted house aspect of it could have been done so much better, but the whole water and being trapped and having to worry about the oxygen part, I think that was probably the best part of the movie, really. Next is Ghostwatch. I finally watched this. It is from 1992. I was only 1 year old when this came out. It was directed by Leslie Manning. It is like a mockumentary, I guess you would call it. It was portrayed as an actual real-life documentary, but is in fact fake, and I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. For Halloween 1992, the BBC decided to broadcast an investigation into the supernatural, hosted by TV chat show legend Michael Parkinson. Parky, assisted by Mike Smith, Sarah Green, and Craig Charles, and a camera crew, attempt to discover the truth behind the most haunted house in Britain. This groundbreaking live television experiment does not go as planned, however. So I've heard this talked about on Reddit threads forever. It's essentially a cult classic. Hearing people's stories of how they saw this when they were a little kid and how it ended up traumatizing them, and that the word pipes is like PTSD for them, was just fascinating, as this was portrayed as something real and live that was actually happening. I also thought it was really clever that they used actual known TV hosts, as that obviously made it more believable, as these were people that the general public trusted. It does start out pretty slow, but once it picks up, it kind of goes from 0 to 100 really quick. I think the best way to experience this movie is with at least one other person, because my husband and I found that there was a lot of stuff to catch in the background, and usually if I caught something, my husband hadn't seen it, and if he caught something, I hadn't seen it, so we were always kind of pointing things out to each other, and I think that's probably the best way to experience it, otherwise you're pretty much guaranteed to miss stuff. The ending did take things way too far, so I feel like if I had been watching this thinking it was real, those last few minutes is probably where it would have lost me. But it did prompt a really fun discussion with my husband afterwards of how they accomplished this, the intention behind it, and things like that. This is just a fun movie, especially knowing the history behind it and what happened. It just makes for a fun experience, especially trying to find everything in the background and seeing how they changed things to trick the audience in a few moments. I thought it was just really clever, especially for the time and the gear they had, and I definitely recommend it for anyone that's a fan of this genre, as it does kind of have that cult classic status. And it would just be fun to watch with a group of friends. Next, I saw Black Widow, Marvel's newest movie. This just came out a little bit ago. It is directed by Kate Shortland. It is action-adventure, and I actually gave it 4 stars. Natasha Romanoff, also known as Black Widow, confronts the darker parts of her ledger when a dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past arises. Pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down, Natasha must deal with her history as a spy and the broken relationships left in her wake long before she became an Avenger. And my phone ran out of room, so if the frame's a little bit different, that's why. Anyway, Black Widow is not my favorite Marvel character. She's always just kind of been there for me. I don't know much about her, and obviously everyone, including me, thinks this movie should have came out a long time ago. So I really went into this with not a lot of expectations, but I actually really enjoyed this. It surprised me, and I don't know if it's just because there hasn't been a new Marvel movie out in a while, but I just had a great time with it. And I actually think it was more because of the side characters than Natasha herself, so I think that's kind of funny. So this is definitely non-stop action. There's no lulls at all. It's pretty much just go, go, go right from the start. And I think that's one of the reasons why I liked it. I feel like I've watched a lot of stuff lately where it kind of gets slow and boring in the middle. And so the fact this was just kind of non-stop action, it was just nice popcorn movie, didn't have to think. I thought the actors all did really well in this, especially David Harbour. I think he was probably one of my favorite characters. There were some really dumb action moments, like the characters walking with explosions behind them. That happened several times. It's just kind of like, yeah, okay, we've seen this already. Can we move on? And there's some really stupid science moments that really don't make any sense and you definitely have to turn your brain off for. It did help me like Black Widow a bit more, and knowing more of her backstory helped. There, of course, is an after credits scene? After credits scene, and it had me screaming. I thought that was just a bit annoying, but we'll see what happens from there. Finally, I watched The Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is a newer movie out on Netflix. This is directed by Michael Rianda. This is his directorial debut, but he did work on Gravity Falls previously. This is a sci-fi action comedy, so all of the genres, and I gave it 3 stars. A quirky, dysfunctional family's road trip is upended when they find themselves in the middle of the robot apocalypse and suddenly become humanity's unlikeliest last hope. So this is essentially Meme the movie, and it wasn't even just them like showing memes, it was in the script itself, like, why can't you just be normal, and things like that. So that was so frequent, it got really distracting, and it just felt weird because you know in a few years this is going to be a very dated movie. The animation was really great. It was very fluid, it was very gorgeous. That is definitely the high point for this by far. But with the memes and everything, it was a very self-aware movie. There is gay representation, which I thought was nice, and I didn't realize until the very end actually. But with the memes being too much, there's also the like nobody understands me trope, and there was just things like that that made me, I guess, not enjoy it as much as everyone else has seemed to. It's a fun movie for a movie night though. And that's all for now. This was a bit of another eclectic list as we have brand new stuff, we have stuff from the 90s, and we have comedy to horror. But as always, thank you for hanging out with me. It is greatly appreciated. And until next time, bonne journée and au revoir.